She looked at me. You're dangerous. I answered, only when I'm around you. The first time she said it, it wasn't loud. Her voice was a low current sliding between us. You're dangerous. I should have laughed. I didn't. I stood still instead, my hand hovering near the stem of her wine glass, close enough to feel the condensation, but not close enough to touch. She was seated on the edge of the old leather sofa, ankle crossed over ankle, hair swept back as if she'd just pinned it up with no mirror. There was nothing theatrical about her. She was composed in a way that made everything else in the room feel a little unsteady. Her blouse, soft gray, sleeves rolled just past the elbow, showed the faint line of a vein running down her wrist. I'm not dangerous, I said finally. It came out softer than I meant. Her eyes lifted, slow, deliberate, until they found mine. Only when you're around me. The room was too quiet then. No music, just the hum of the fridge and the faint hiss of rain against the window. The air smelled faintly of oranges from the candle she'd lit on the counter. I could hear my pulse in my ears. She didn't look away. I've known her a few weeks. Knew her as the woman who ran the gallery where I'd been volunteering. But in that moment, she was only a pair of eyes and a stillness that pulled at me. I shifted my weight. You're imagining things, I murmured. A small movement, her thumb sliding along the rim of her glass, then stopping. She tilted her head. Am I? I should have said something clever, but the words caught. My fingers brushed the back of the sofa behind her. I hadn't realized how close I'd moved until I caught the scent of her shampoo. Clean, citrus, faint trace of rain from when she'd walked in. Her shoulder was inches from mine now. When she breathed out, I felt it warm against my neck. She didn't step back. Neither did I. I shouldn't, she began, but didn't finish. Her lips pressed together. A pause, long enough to stretch between us. I swallowed. You're married? Her eyes flicked down, then up. No, she smiled. But it was a small, uneven thing. Just careful. She reached for the wine bottle and poured more into her glass. Her sleeve brushed the back of my hand. Barely a touch, but enough to send a pulse through me. I didn't move it away. Why do you keep looking at me like that? She asked quietly. I almost said, like what? But she already knew. Instead, I stared at the candle's wavering flame on the counter. I don't know, I whispered. Her laughter came low and short. You're younger than you look, she said, but her voice trembled on the last word. I turned toward her. You're older than you act, I said, then regretted it. But she didn't flinch. She just held my gaze, a faint color rising on her cheekbones. Outside, a car splashed through a puddle. The sound broke whatever was building between us. She set her glass down, fingers still on the stem, knuckles pale. Then, 3 sharp knocks at the door. She froze, looked at me once, as if deciding something, then stood. Her hand hesitated on the doorknob. When she glanced back, her eyes were darker, unreadable. Stay here, she said softly. And then she opened the door. She closed the door softly. The hallway went quiet again. For a few seconds, I only heard the rain and the faint ticking of the kitchen clock. When she turned back to me, something in her face had shifted, the faint tension of someone who'd just been reminded of another life. She leaned against the frame, arms folded, eyes on the floor. Sorry, she said. My neighbor. He worries when he hears voices. I tried to smile. Do you always get checked on? She shrugged. I live alone. It makes people curious. The words sat between us. I live alone. I wondered if she meant to tell me that, or if it had just slipped. I picked up my jacket from the chair, but didn't put it on. You don't have to explain, I said. She straightened, smoothing her sleeve as if wiping away the moment. You're very young, she murmured. Not an accusation, more like a self-reminder. And she stopped. Old enough to know better. I almost laughed. You don't seem old. That's not a compliment, she said softly, but her eyes flicked to mine, testing. I looked away first. The gallery walls I'd helped her paint last month flashed in my head. The way she moved through the empty space, hair pulled back, not looking at me, but somehow aware of me. She poured water this time instead of wine. I used to be married, she said suddenly. 10 years. Ended quietly. No big scene. Just stopped. I nodded, unsure what to do with my hands. I hesitated. Nothing serious. Nothing that lasted. We both laughed at that. A thin, shared sound. Her hand reached out, resting for a second on my shoulder, steadying me though I wasn't moving. It was the kind of touch people use when words aren't enough. She withdrew almost immediately, fingers curling into her palm. "You shouldn't look at me the way you do," she said. "I'm not sure I know how not to," I answered before thinking. Her breath caught. I heard it. She turned away to open the window a crack, rain smell drifting in. The breeze lifted a strand of her hair, brushing my wrist when I stepped closer. Neither of us spoke. "People would talk," she said finally, still facing the window. "They'd think I'm—" She didn't finish the sentence. I found myself studying the curve of her neck, the pale line of skin where her blouse fell open. I looked down at the floor, ashamed of how much I wanted to reach out. She turned back toward me, eyes a little wet from the wind. "And you," she said softly, "you're supposed to be starting your life, not this." I opened my mouth, closed it again. Instead, I reached past her to shut the window. My hand brushed her arm. Light, unplanned, but she didn't move away. For a heartbeat, we stood that way, shoulder to shoulder, her breath warming the side of my face, both of us pretending we weren't trembling. Then she looked up at me, really looked. No smile, no warning, just a stillness that felt like an answer waiting. The next evening at the gallery, the air felt different, sharper, like the smell of paint and rain had turned into something metallic. She was rearranging a sculpture near the front window. I was supposed to be logging inventory. Our reflections kept crossing in the glass. Every time I looked up, she was already glancing away. A phone buzzed. Her phone. She checked it, thumb lingering on the screen, then put it face down without answering. A faint crease formed between her brows. "You're quiet tonight," I said. "I'm working," she murmured, but her voice trailed off as if she'd lost the thread. I stepped closer to hand her a catalog. My knuckles brushed hers. She didn't move them immediately. The contact lasted a beat too long, like an unfinished word. "You shouldn't," she whispered. "I didn't do anything. You're standing too close." I stepped back an inch. It wasn't enough. Her perfume, faint citrus and something darker, drifted around me. Another buzz. This time a message slid across the phone's screen, bright against the dim gallery light. A name. I couldn't help reading it. She noticed. "It's no one," she said quickly, but her voice was brittle. "I didn't ask," I said. She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, the guarded look had slipped. "You're making this hard," she whispered. I should have gone back to the storeroom. Instead, I reached past her to adjust the sculpture's stand. My arm brushed her shoulder. She exhaled sharply but didn't step away. Outside, footsteps approached, someone from the street, stopping at the window. We both froze, inches apart, faces reflected in the glass. The person cupped their hands to the pane, peering in. Her hand shot out, fingers gripping my wrist, holding me still. We stayed like that until the footsteps moved on. She let go slowly, fingertips trailing along my skin. "People notice," she said under her breath. "They always notice." My heart was pounding. "Maybe I don't care." "You should," she replied, but it came out like a plea, not a warning. A silence stretched. I could hear our breathing. She reached to steady the sculpture again. Her sleeve slid up, exposing the soft skin of her forearm. I caught myself staring. She looked at me then, eyes unguarded. "Don't," she said quietly. "I'm trying not to," I answered. We both moved at the same time. Me stepping forward, her turning slightly. Our faces ended up inches apart, her breath brushing my lips. She didn't back away, but she didn't close the distance either. Outside, another car splashed through a puddle. The sound broke the spell for a heartbeat, but we didn't move. Her hand was still on the stand. Mine found the edge of the table next to hers, fingers grazing hers, neither of us pulling back. "We can't," she whispered. I nodded, but neither of us stepped away. The gallery had emptied. Rain tapped harder against the glass, the street outside blurred and silver. We were alone, the lights dimmed to a soft glow that left corners in shadow. She was sorting through a box of new pieces, hands moving faster than necessary. A slip of hair had fallen across her cheek. She kept pushing it back, missing each time. I set down my clipboard, crossed the room. "Let me," I said quietly. She froze, then lowered her eyes. I reached out and brushed the strand away from her face. My fingers grazed her temple. Her skin was cool from the rain, soft under my thumb. She inhaled sharply, as if the air had caught in her throat. "You shouldn't," she whispered. "You keep saying that," I murmured. "But you don't move away." Her hand stilled on the box. For a moment she just stood there, breathing. "Because I don't trust myself," she said finally, voice so low I almost missed it. I stepped closer. Then tell me to leave. She looked up. Her eyes were dark, wide, reflecting the faint gallery lights. I tried, she said. Every time. The air between us felt thick, charged. I could smell rain on her coat, the faint trace of her perfume underneath. My heart beat hard enough that I was sure she could hear it. I watch you, she admitted, the words breaking like glass. Every day, even when I shouldn't. I think about. She stopped, biting her lip. I'm supposed to be the adult here. You are, I said softly. But I'm not a kid. Her laugh came out cracked. She turned away, gripping the edge of the table until her knuckles whitened. If anyone knew, she started. I moved to her side, close enough that my sleeve brushed hers. Then don't let them know. She faced me then, suddenly, so close our noses almost touched. You think it's that simple? She whispered. Her breath warmed my mouth. I could feel her trembling. I don't think anything's simple, I said. I just know what's happening right now. Her hands lifted as if to push me back, but stopped in midair and hovered against my chest, palms open. We stood like that, not touching, not moving, a heartbeat away from everything changing. I can't, she began, but her voice broke. She leaned forward, forehead brushing mine, eyes closing. Tell me to stop, I whispered. She didn't answer. Her fingers curled into my shirt. Her lips parted, an inch from mine. I could feel the heat of her breath, smell the wine she'd had earlier, the rain on her skin. Then the front door creaked. Someone's voice, muffled, calling her name, drifted in from the entryway. Her eyes flew open. She didn't pull away, not yet. Her grip tightened instead. We're out of time, she breathed. The voice at the entryway echoed down the hall. Elena? You hear? She went rigid. Her grip on my shirt loosened, but she didn't move away. Her eyes darted toward the doorway like a trapped animal's. It's my sister, she mouthed, almost soundless. I stepped back just enough for air between us. My hands fell to my sides. They were trembling. She smoothed her blouse, hair still mussed from where my fingers had been. The flush on her throat gave her away. Coming, she called, her voice a notch too high. Footsteps retreated toward the front desk. A door clicked shut again. We were alone, but the spell was broken. She turned to me, exhaling hard. She must have a key, she whispered. She checks on me sometimes. I told her. She stopped, biting the inside of her cheek. What did you tell her? I asked. That you're just helping at the gallery. That you're a student. That you're harmless. The word hung there. Harmless. I'm not, I said quietly. Her eyes flicked up, startled. Don't say that. You're the one who called me dangerous. She took a small step back until her hip bumped the table. I was joking. No, you weren't, I said, softer now. And you weren't honest with me either. She stiffened. About what? I pulled my phone from my pocket, thumb hovering over a message that had popped up while we were working. The person texting you yesterday. It wasn't no one. I saw the name. It was. She shut her eyes. My ex-husband, she admitted at last. We still talk. He still thinks he can fix us. The room seemed to shrink. Rain hissed harder against the window. The smell of wet pavement drifted in. I didn't speak. My jaw felt locked. I didn't tell you because it's not really about him, she said. Her hands fluttered up, palms open, then dropped again. It's about me. About what I'm doing. I moved closer without meaning to. Our shoulders brushed. She didn't move away. I told myself you were just a volunteer, she whispered. That I was just lonely. But then you look at me the way you do, and she stopped. Her fingers found the edge of my sleeve, gripping it for balance. It's not safe, she said, but her voice was shaking. I don't care if it's safe, I said. Her eyes met mine. A slow exhale escaped her lips, warm against my cheek. She took one deliberate step toward me until the space between us was nothing but breath and heat. I should end this, she murmured. You won't, I answered. For a heartbeat she stared at me, expression unreadable. Then she nodded once, almost imperceptibly, a decision forming in her eyes. She reached up and touched the side of my face, thumb brushing the corner of my mouth. We're past pretending, she said softly. The gallery was closed. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining. Inside, the air smelled faintly of varnish and wet wool from our coats hanging by the door. We stood in the middle of the empty floor, surrounded by silent sculptures like witnesses. She hadn't taken her hand from my cheek since the moment she'd said we're past pretending. Her thumb still traced a small circle near the corner of my mouth, absent-minded, like she was trying to memorize the shape. "Say something," she whispered. I swallowed. "You already know." Her eyes searched mine. "Do you?" "I know what I want," I said. "I don't know what it'll cost." Her hand fell, fingers brushing my chest before she stepped back a fraction. "It could cost you everything. People will talk. I'll be the villain. You'll be the boy who didn't know better." "I'm not a boy," I said softly. Silence. We stared at each other. The humming of the old heating system filled the space between our breaths. She crossed her arms, then dropped them, restless. I took a step closer until we were a handspan apart. "You think I haven't imagined this?" she murmured, almost to herself. "You think I don't go home and sit in the dark, telling myself to stop?" Her voice broke on the last word. "I don't want to hurt you," I said. "I just want." I stopped. The words refused to come. She closed the distance herself, pressing her forehead to mine. Her eyes shut, lashes damp from earlier rain. "Tell me to leave," she whispered. "I can't." "Then tell me to stay." My hands hovered at her waist, but didn't touch. "If you stay, everything changes." "I know." Her breath was warm against my lips. "And if I walk out now?" "It still changes," I said. She laughed once, a sound halfway between relief and despair. Her hand slid up to the back of my neck, then stilled there, trembling. "We're standing on the edge," she said. "I know." For a heartbeat, we didn't breathe. Then she opened her eyes and looked at me. Not guarded, not careful, just real. "This isn't a game," she said. "If we do this, we can't hide behind excuses." "No excuses," I whispered. Her thumb brushed my jaw. "Then stop hesitating." I let out a shaky breath. My hands finally found her arms, light at first, then firmer, pulling her a fraction closer. Our noses touched, our foreheads pressed. The sculptures around us seemed to disappear. There was only her, inches away, her pulse visible at her throat. "We choose now," she said. I nodded. "We choose." And in that suspended second, before either of us moved, we both knew exactly what the choice meant, and that neither of us could pretend anymore. The gallery felt like a different place the next morning. Sunlight angled through the high windows, glinting off the sculptures. The smell of coffee drifted from the little back room. No rain, no shadows, just light. She was sitting on the floor near the window, knees drawn up, hair loose around her face. When I walked in, she looked up, not startled this time, only tired and calm. "You came back," she said. I said I would. I set the coffee down beside her. She reached for it, our fingers brushing. No flinch, no retreat. Just contact, warm and steady. For a long moment we sat without speaking. Outside, a bus hissed to a stop. Inside, the gallery silence felt less like a secret and more like a shelter. "I didn't sleep," she admitted softly. "I kept thinking about all of it. The age gap, the whispers, the risk. Everything I told myself was a reason to stop." I lowered myself beside her. "I thought about it too. And I still came." Her mouth curved. Not a smile exactly, more like a surrender. "You're too young to be this sure." "Maybe," I said. "But I'm sure anyway." She looked down at her hands, then at mine. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out and laced her fingers through mine. Her palm was cool at first, then warmed against my skin. "We can go slow," she murmured. "No games. No pretending we're something we're not." "Slow's fine," I said, "as long as it's real." She exhaled, a sound halfway between relief and laughter. Then she leaned her head against my shoulder. I felt the weight of it, solid and human. Not a fantasy, not a stolen moment. Just her, close enough to hear the faint hitch in her breath as she settled. I turned slightly, resting my cheek against the top of her head. She smelled like coffee and rain, and something I couldn't name, but had been chasing since the first day at the gallery. We stayed like that, watching sunlight inch across the floor. No rushing, no hiding. Her thumb stroked the back of my hand. My arm slipped around her waist, not pulling, just there. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too," I said. She tilted her face up, and I kissed her forehead. A small, unhurried gesture. She closed her eyes, and for the first time, she didn't pull away. When she opened them again, they were clear, steady. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "we'll face it." "Together," I answered. Her fingers squeezed mine. Together. The gallery hummed with light and quiet. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, for a little while, everything felt possible. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?